Welcome to the Talkin VAWLS Network. My name is Boogie Bentley. Spring camp is right around the corner. A week from Monday, spring camp kicks off for the Tennessee Volunteers. And not only that, when spring camp gets fired up, that's when recruiting really starts to pick up. A lot of spring visits, then you've got visits going into the summer. A lot of these kids want to make a decision where they're going to play at the next level before they go into their senior season of high school football. But, when we talk recruiting, I think back to when Josh Heupel first arrived at the University of Tennessee, and we would cover these commitments. We would cover recruitments, and one of the big things everybody liked to say was 3-star U. And I think back to even just last cycle, Gage Ginther. Everybody wants to say 3-star U. Well, guess what? His evaluations stock up, right? We had Kyler Curbison on the channel breaking down film back during the charity stream, and he says Gage Ginther is the best offensive lineman that Tennessee signed in this class. A more recent name, Joakim Dodson, a wide receiver that committed in the class of 25, 3-star prospect. Guess what? Just got an offer from Georgia. Stock up. Now his recruitment's going to start to pick up. Tennessee is going to have to hang on to Joakim Dodson. But what is important? Is it stars? It is evaluations, because I think the truth really lies somewhere in the middle. Your coaching staff has to be able to evaluate talent, but when you look at the grand scheme of things, when you look at probability and statistics, it tells you that you're going to have better odds if you sign more 5-stars. So where does Josh Heupel need to be? I think this high school recruiting needs to pick up, and you look at where he's at. Jeremy Pruitt only signed 2 5-stars in his time at Tennessee. Butch Jones only signed, as good as he did recruiting, only signed 2 5-stars in his time at Tennessee. Derek Dooley the same. Lane Kiffin the same. Josh Heupel's already signed more 5-stars than all of the coaches that were here before him after the Philip Fulmer era. He signed Nico, Mike Matthews, Jordan Ross, and now George McIntyre, also a 5-star. Let's go take a look. On3 put out their new 5-star rankings, and we're going to go through this, and we're going to look at some legitimate Tennessee targets. You got 20 players here. Of course, George McIntyre, 5-star quarterback, already committed to Tennessee. David Sanders, the number 2 ranked player in the country. Tennessee is deep in it there. Andrew Babalola, another 5-star offensive tackle. Tennessee is in it deep. Josh Petty grew up a Tennessee Volunteer fan. Tennessee working to get him back on campus. Also 5-star wide receiver Caleb Cunningham. So when you look at the list of targets, Tennessee's got 5 of the top 20 guys. One of them, in George McIntyre, is already committed. We're going to break these down. We're going to go through them one by one and see where Tennessee is at with some of these 5-star prospects. Can they turn the corner? When you look at a list like that, you see a whole lot of Ohio State. You see a whole lot of Georgia, a whole lot of LSU. Can Tennessee be one of those teams that starts to become one of these 5-star U's? Can they be a 5-star U? We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about it. But as always, I need you guys to do me a favor and smash the thumbs up just below the video. It's quick, free, easy. Helps the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, if you're new to the Talkin VAWLS Network, welcome. We're not experts here. We're not insiders. We're not media. We don't talk at you. We talk with you. This channel is for the fans, by the fans. If you like what we do, make sure you subscribe. Click that bell for notifications. You're not going to miss out when we go live or when we drop a video. Like I said at the top of this, spring camp is a week away. A week from tomorrow, spring camp kicks off. What we're going to do next Sunday, we're going to do a live fan call-in show at 7 p.m. Eastern time. You guys are going to have an opportunity to come on here and talk about spring camp, what you're excited about, what you're going to be watching. And then I think we're going to move through spring camp doing a fan call-in show every Sunday night and a Wednesday night show with myself, Coach Jay, Coach Rice, whoever wants to jump on. We're going to cover spring camp like it's the regular season. Full steam ahead here on the Talkin VAWLS Network. But let's jump back into a little recruiting. Let's go take a look at David Sanders. Again, we're going from the top 20 players in the country. George McIntyre already committed. David Sanders, the highest ranked prospect on that list of top 20 that Tennessee is deep in it with. 5-star offensive tackle, 6'5", 250 pounds, out of Charlotte. Just dropped his top 6 just recently. Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, South Carolina, and Tennessee. Now, according to VolQuest, it's more of a Clemson-Tennessee battle right now, with Georgia trailing, but they are in the mix as well. He's got visit scheduled. He's going to be at Clemson today. He's actually on his visit to Clemson right now. He'll be at Georgia next weekend, Alabama on March the 23rd. He'll be in Knoxville on April the 12th, and then South Carolina on April the 19th. Now, here's a quote he gave to 247 Sports. Said, "We as a family are definitely going to be more intentional on these visits. We're going to ask more in-depth questions and just continuing to lean into each program. Says, I know David wants to be around the program a lot more and see where he best fits. This is what his mother told 247 Sports. Says, it just feels like we are pulling back another layer of David's recruitment and things are becoming a lot more intentional. Says, I feel like spring and official visits in the summer will be the most crucial part of the recruitment. This is from David. Says, relationships go a long way, a place I feel comfortable, a place I can be developed. Still going to take it slow and getting it down from 43 to 6. It's a lot easier to manage just getting around the programs more. I'll be able to feel which one is best for me. So he talks about relationships. He talks about development. I think it speaks volumes that Glenn Ellerby, that Coach Heibel, they can point to Darnell Wright and say, look what we did here, put him into the league. I think that, you got to continue to develop and get guys to the NFL. That helps in recruiting. Now, Chad Simmons' most recent update says, I think at this point things are set. David Sanders is set on 6 schools heading into the decision that could likely come mid to late summer. That's been his plan. He and his family have been in this together, communicating with the coaches. Chad Simmons goes on to say, I think the 3 schools that have really positioned themselves the best heading into spring are Clemson, Georgia, and Tennessee. Here's a quote. Sanders has really enjoyed his time at Tennessee. The X factor for the Volunteers is 5-star quarterback commit George McIntyre. Those two communicate. They visited Alabama and Tennessee together last year and have become good friends. McIntyre's a quarterback who's looking for that elite left tackle to block for him, and Sanders fits that bill. Goes on to say Glenn Ellerby, Kevin Pendleton, and Josh Heupel all involved in the Vols' push for Sanders. They've done a great job recruiting him to this point. So again, that's the number 2 ranked player in the country, David Sanders. You can clearly see Tennessee is deep in it. Are they becoming a 5-star U? George McIntyre already in the boat, looking for that elite offensive tackle in David Sanders. Tennessee's in it deep. That's 2 5-star prospects in this cycle Tennessee could likely end up with. Another one that Tennessee's in it with, that's another 5-star offensive tackle. You got your 5-star quarterback. Now what do you need? You need 2 guys to protect that quarterback. Andrew Babalola, 6'5.5", 280 pounds, out of Kansas. You can see ranked 14th overall in the country. This is a scouting summary. This is what's interesting to me about Andrew Babalola. It says he's immensely gifted offensive tackle, has the physical traits and athletic ability to develop into one of the top prospects at the position in the 2025 cycle. Here's where it gets interesting. New to playing football, playing his first year of varsity action as a junior, previously being a basketball-first athlete. That's the thing. When we look at these guys and they're new to football, but he's still coming in as the 14th best player in the country, you get a coach that can develop him, that can teach him, work on fundamentals. Andrew Babalola, the ceiling is high for him. So, again, you got George. You're looking for a couple of offensive tackles to protect him. Could you get 2 5-star offensive tackles in the same class? I think the offensive line recruiting has been missing prior to the 24 cycle. I think Glenn Ellerby did a really good job in that class of 24. I think he did a really good job with roster management, bringing back his entire offensive line, adding Lance Hurd. That's an upgrade to Gerald Mincy. Don't be a Gerald. Don't go to Kentucky and run your mouth. Don't be a Gerald. But I think they upgraded with Lance Hurd being added there, and then you added 4 pretty good guys in the class of 24 on that offensive line. But again, it's about stacking those classes. Continue to add talent. That way you develop, you grow. And, we're worried about depth when we look at the 2024 season on that offensive line. We're worried about staying healthy. That's how you fix that, is continue to add elite talent across the board in the recruiting classes year after year after year. This is from Chad Simmons, the recruiting buzz on Andrew Babalola. Says things are starting to take shape. He has locked in an official visit with Oklahoma for June the 21st through the 23rd. He knows Tennessee will receive one. They're working to finalize the date now. An elite offensive tackle out of Overland Park, Blue Valley Northwest, is planning to take 4 official visits, then make a decision later this summer. Again, that's the way it trends. A lot of unofficials in the spring, a lot of official visits over the summer. Typically want to make a decision going into their senior year. It says a list of other schools in the mix for those final 2 spots are Auburn, Kansas State, Missouri, Auburn, Michigan, Stanford, and USC. Now, here's a question I was reading on VolQuest. Somebody asked Matt Ray, who does a great job, by the way, great job covering recruiting, says, which offensive linemen are the Vols in the best shape with? Number 1 on the list, Jalen Matthews. I've made videos on him, talked a lot about him, 4-star offensive tackle out of the Northeast. Number 2, David Sanders. Deep in it with David Sanders and Jalen Matthews. He also says they're in it deep with Juan Gaston and Dontrell Glover. Glover's a guy that I need to make a video on and talk a little bit about But he says, I think they have an outside shot with Andrew Babalola if they can get him back on campus again. So, again, it sounds like there, according to Chad Simmons, that Andrew Babalola is going to get back on campus again. So does Tennessee have a legitimate shot there? I think they do. But as we talked about before, you don't got to land them all. You just got to land your fair share. Get David Sanders. Maybe you miss on Babalola. And then a follow-up question to that. They ask Matt Ray, why hasn't Josh Petty scheduled a visit back to Tennessee? And Matt Ray responds that I just look for him to be here at some point. He's a good player, but I think several on the board are thought of just as highly as him. And again, that goes back to your evaluations, right? But Josh Petty is another guy on the list, 18th player overall in the country. He's on that top 20 list of 5 stars. He's a 5-star offensive tackle out of Georgia, 6'4", 265. He's got visits scheduled coming up. Going to be at Clemson on March the 12th, Georgia Tech on the 15th, Georgia on the 16th, Auburn the 19th, Florida State on the 29th. So, again, the question becomes, why not Tennessee? Why is he not coming back on campus? And one of the key factors here is he grew up a Tennessee fan. Even though he's out of the state of Georgia, grew up a Tennessee fan. This is a quote he gave back about his offer when Tennessee got involved early. He says, growing up as a Tennessee fan and getting that offer was crazy. I'm not going to lie. He says, I remember where I was and everything about it. I remember every word of the conversation. I remember thinking, this is crazy to get an offer from my dream school growing up. He goes on to say, as I got further into my recruitment, I knew I had to work past that and look at each school and know this is a business decision, but earning that offer was special for me. Now, Chad Simmons' update says the only official visit Josh Petty has scheduled is Clemson on May the 31st through June the 2nd. And again, the visits I rattled off earlier, again, those spring visits are unofficial. So the only official he's got locked in is to Clemson. Says he feels strongly about other schools getting officials, including Georgia and Oregon. Many other are in contention like Auburn, Florida State, Michigan, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and UCLA. He is hoping to visit over a half dozen schools this spring, lock in official visits in June, then see how he feels about a commitment. Petty will commit when he feels ready, and he is not set on a summer decision. Georgia has some buzz around it heading into the spring, but Petty is still exploring all options. So I think it'll be interesting to watch and see if he makes that unofficial visit to Tennessee over the spring, and then can they lock down that official going into the summer. But again, these are legitimate targets. Tennessee is deep in it with these guys. You're talking about 5 out of the top 20. Is that enough? How many of these guys do you have to land? One last one I want to take a look at, and this is going to be an interesting recruitment to follow. That's 5-star wide receiver Caleb Cunningham. He comes in as the 20th best player in the country, number 3 ranked wide receiver across the board, whether you look at On3, 247, ESPN, or Rival, 6'3", 185 out of Mississippi. A lot of buzz around Mississippi State on this one. That kind of cooled off a little bit. This is what Chad Simmons put out on Caleb Cunningham. Said he could visit double-digit schools this spring. This one's going to be a ride, boys. Said he's not planning to make a decision before his senior season. So this is one that's going all the way down to the wire. We're going all the way to December with this thing. We're going to go into February with it. Says new Mississippi State coach Jeff Lebby is doing an excellent job at the local target. He and his staff are recruiting Cunningham, and his mother is extremely hard and quickly gained that trust. Alabama, Auburn, Florida State, Ole Miss, and Tennessee are among others in the mix, but they're all chasing the program in Starkville heading into spring visits. So again, Matt Ray from VolQuest said huge slate of visits coming up. Vols get him to town in early April, and exclamation points behind this. That's a big visit. He's going to visit Ole Miss, LSU, Florida State, Auburn, Tennessee on April the 1st, Miami, Florida, Texas A&M. He just wrapped up a visit with Alabama, coming off of that Alabama high, coming off that visit high. He was pretty excited about that one, but again, get him on campus April 1st. Let's see where we're at. Visited back during the George game. Loved the atmosphere. George McIntyre was in town for that. David Sanders was in town for that. Good relationship with George. Likes the idea of playing with George McIntyre. And when that commitment came in, VolQuest put out an article. They reached out to some of these targets in the class of 25, and Caleb Cunningham, this is what he said, had to say after George's commitment. He said, that's my guy. So we stay in touch. He's a really good quarterback. I had a feeling that's where he was going. He was going to stay home. I can just see him playing in that offense. I can see him there at Tennessee, and we could be a dynamic duo one day in college. Chad Simmons, after the George commitment to Tennessee, says it's always hard for programs to get the best out of Mississippi, but Tennessee is now in a better spot than it was before McIntyre's commitment. The two had some conversations. McIntyre will now work to get Caleb Cunningham back to Knoxville, and the Vols are in the mix. Tennessee has some work to do here. Goes on to talk about Mississippi State trending. Ole Miss is in play. And like Tennessee, multiple ACC and SEC schools are working to become serious contenders. So Tennessee entered there with 5-star wide receiver Caleb Cunningham. There's a lot of highly ranked 4-star prospects Tennessee is in the mix for. But again, I go back to the start of the video, pull up the top 20. This is the top 20 prospects in the country. George is already in the boat. David Sanders, Tennessee in a very good spot with Babalola, outside shot, and then also Josh Petty, got to get him on campus. They're going to do that. Caleb Cunningham, going to get him on campus. What do you guys think? How many of these guys does Tennessee need to lock down? And I get it. I get it. High school recruiting has to be better. It's got to be better. I think Josh Heupel's done a nice job to this point. It's time to take that next step, but it's also 2024. We're not talking about 2012 football here where you got to go sign all 5-star guys. It's about the transfer portal. It's about roster management. There's more to it than just high school recruiting. A little long-winded today, but a lot of good information. Wanted to put this one out on a Sunday. Hope you guys are having a great day, but go check out the merchandise, bonfire.com/store/Talkin VAWLS. Make sure you smash the thumbs up on the way out the door and get those memberships up to date, as we are going to be rolling out all kinds of fan call-in shows throughout spring camp. But that is going to do it for this one. This is the Talkin VAWLS Network. My name is Boogie Bentley. Go Big Orange.